Hello and welcome to this episode of the Caffeine Chronicles, where I enjoy a cup of coffee and a chat with interesting folk. And today I'm joined by Abby Wynne, who is a spiritual teacher, best-selling author and healer. And Abby says that she writes to teach you how there is magic in the world and how there's magic and beauty in you too, and that maybe you've just forgotten. Abby, welcome and thank you for joining me today. It's lovely to have you here.
It's really lovely to be here. Maybe that's why I got really strong coffee for the Caffeine Chronicles. So I love my coffee. So
I
coffee
like
and a
my
chat.
coffee. There's two times of the day for me is BC and AC, before coffee and after coffee. And I'm a lot better after coffee. And today I want to talk to you about your new One Day at a Time diary for 2025.
Mm,
And I want to talk to you about your work as a spiritual teacher and how people can learn to take more control back in their lives through empowerment. And I think that's pretty important during the current times that we're in. So I'd also like to chat with you about things people can do, especially if they're feeling all at sea at the moment and they want to come back to centre. So there's lots to
yeah.
chat about in today's broadcast. So, to get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be on the spiritual path that you're on?
Wow. Where do I start? It's interesting because this morning I woke up feeling right. I'm not really going to be doing one-to-one sessions anymore. And this was something I've been doing for 15 years. And basically, having four children, a stay-at-home husband, having to support the household with my business, it would have been a huge risk. But I'm feeling that reaching groups of people more and going deeper. And I'm going to be teaching practitioners next year. So I'm so excited about that. I'm going to be teaching people how to do what I do. So if I cast my mind back to when I was 20, so I'm 53 now. When I was 20, I was going through a spiritual crisis at college, but I didn't know it was a spiritual crisis. I didn't have words for it. But I was getting a lot of anxiety. So I went to see a counselor, and the counselor talked to me for 6 sessions. And what they did was, make the relationship, get comfortable, and then start prizing open the wounding. And I was practically bleeding out anyway. But he really opened it up towards the end of the session. And then he say, "Oh, that's time. I'll see you next week." And so I was left sitting in piles of my own shite, basically. What I've been pushing down the whole week to try and just manage to get there. I think when a spiritual crisis happens to someone, so when all of this emotional turmoil is pushing down and you don't have any energy left and it bursts through. But he really opened it out. But he didn't give me any support, any help. And I swear to God, it would take me 6 days to come back to the state I was in when I walked in. And then I'd walk in again and he'd do it to me again. So counseling was not helping me. And at the end of the 6 sessions, he said, "Well, there's nothing more I can do for you." And as far as I was concerned, he hadn't done anything for me. And when you're in turmoil, I'm sure many of your listeners will agree, what you hear is not necessarily what was said. So when he said, "There's nothing more I can do for you," I heard, "Counseling cannot do anything more for you." And so I was with, well, counseling actually didn't do anything for me, only give me more work to do to just maintain the balance. So I was very distraught. And I found out about energy healing. I had a Reiki session, which kind of helped clean up a bit, but it didn't really. And I was standing in a bookshop. Please, please, what will help me? What can I do? And this book had a glow on it and practically jumped into my hand. And it was a shamanic energy healing book. And I picked it up and I opened it to a random page and it gave a technique. And I said, "Oh, this is interesting." And it's using hands and opening energy centers and closing down energy centers. And I just kind of did it there in the shop and I felt immediately better. And then I wouldn't put the book back on the shelf. So I bought it. And that book was my Bible for months and months. And it was almost like I would do something in my sleep and not know what I was doing. And then I pick up the book and there was what I just did. I don't think I read it from cover to cover for a while. I think I just kept opening it randomly. But for me, that really illustrated the fact that we are multidimensional beings and there's so much more to us than our mind. And if we don't have the energy, all the rest of it leaks in. And so After I was able to learn about clearing energy, releasing pressure, cleansing the chakras, I looked at the back of the book and it was probably the first time that I saw, and I think I'd had it over a year at this point, that the person who wrote the book did training. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I could go and do training with them. So I did the training with them. I did the counseling training, psychotherapy training, listening training, mindfulness training. And then I'm here with a client and I'm like, well, what do I do with the client? They're talking, they've signed up for counseling, but we want to do energy work. So, what I did was I blended everything together in such a way that you're using huge, vast scores of your imagination, of your psyche, of your subconscious, and your consciousness and your imagination. And what's really interesting is it kind of streamlined itself into a very practical way of working. And then I was beginning to realize it's not psychotherapy, it's not counseling, it's not shamanism either, not really. So I called myself a shamanic psychotherapist. And it's been an incredibly powerful healing tool. And it's only now I feel ready to teach this as a way to work with other people. And what's really interesting for me is the first part of this class next year. I'm going to launch it next year. It's going to be you have to do your own inner work first. So, so I'm not going to have any therapists working who have not done this for themselves because I really do believe that you can't bring anyone with you if you haven't gone there yourself. So, with this in mind, I wrote the diary to get back to the diary. And I had been published because I wrote books about how I worked. The first book that I had was called How to Be Well, it was published by Hay House. I did an energy healing book where I strip all the labels off of energy healing and explain what it is to the bare basic bones of it. And then I wrote a book called Heal Your Inner Wounds. And I'm like, how to be well and heal your inner wounds. Those are your manuals for life to give you everything basically that I needed when I was back in my 20s, bleeding out and not having help from anybody else. But you have to do it for yourself. You really do. And I see it a bit like going to the gym where you can have all of your trainers, but if you don't get up and do your sit ups, your muscles in your tummy won't get stronger. Nobody can make those muscles strong, only you. You have to do the walking. You can't, okay, I can cheat on my steps, Sarah, because I do crochet at night. And when I wear my Apple Watch, it thinks I'm doing steps. And it's like, oh, I did 16,000 steps today. And I didn't because I've been doing loads of crochet. But I know I haven't done the steps. The body knows I haven't. So that's the thing. So I did the book with Gill, which is an Irish publisher, for the first 5 years, and it was an Irish bestseller. We would sell 5,000 of them every Christmas, and people loved them. And I know that people got through the first couple of years of COVID with the diary at hand. It really helped them every day. But then Gill just decided, no, they weren't going to publish me. And I've been outspoken. I've not been, subjected to the basic narrative. For want of a better word, I've been following Thomas for a long time. And so I thought, well, they're not publishing me because they don't like me. So I negotiated with them to keep the rights to the one day at a time healing diary branding type thing. And so last year, I made the diary for this year, 2024 diary. And I was so unhappy with it. I'll just show you. I did it in hardback on Amazon and it turned out shite. I got the design, I got the inside, but the quality of it wasn't right. So it's been a journey to actually create this myself. So this one for next year, I'm really proud of it because it's a good size. It's really full of information and stuff, and it feels nice to hold. So when you said you wanted to talk about it, I was really pleased. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I've got my own copy here, and it's I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into it because it's not only a diary, it's almost a journal of your
Yeah.
journey for the year. And there's lots of exercises in it. And I think the overarching theme of it is being present in your
Hmm.
life. And then
Yeah.
each month covers a smaller aspect of how to be present. So, like, you've got January, you've got the topic or the theme of love, we've got mindfulness in there, authenticity, being authentic. There's even some little colouring things there to doodle in, and
Yeah, I got the mindfulness, but it's really important just to say that at the very beginning, there's a contract, and you contract with yourself to not be upset with yourself if you miss a month, or if you don't, if you've decided you want to do it, really go into it and then you don't, because life happens too. So ultimately, in all of the work that I've done, the shamanic psychotherapy, the healing, everything, the fundamental learning is to know yourself and to become your own best friend. And that's what these diaries really are designed to help you do, to get to know yourself, to not get angry at yourself if you don't do what you've decided to do. I think a lot of us have really sharp and hard minds, and we don't give ourselves the benefit of the doubt. We should have done this or we should have done that. Even saying I need to write a gratitude list at the end of the day, and then you forget to do it and you get angry at yourself. There's no point getting angry at yourself. You're doing the best you can every day, and just give it to yourself, do you know?
I think people set themselves too high a goal for them, to do. And it always happens at New Year with resolutions. People
Oh
have all
yeah.
these resolutions that they want to do. They set far too many, and there's no need to wait until January to set a resolution anyway. Just work on one at a time instead of a whole list of things. And then the minute that you fall down, like you said, they put it in the bin. They think, oh, well, forget that. Forget that. I'm not going to do work on that anymore because I can't do it. It's too hard.
Well, do you know how we're learning that the world is conspired against us, and that all of our natural cycles and flow have been used against us, for want of a better word? In the middle of winter, January is the worst time for anybody to try anything new. And so I think that's why they've made the new year then. And that's why they've done the whole resolution things, because then you can spend 3 months creating enough doubt and fear and hate and anger towards yourself to destroy any goodness that could possibly have come. Because the natural way of moving is to hibernate in the winter and to just gestate and to rest. And in the springtime, when the energies start to liven up, you just follow nature. When the leaves are beginning to blossom and the flowers are opening, is an awakening period where you can start to think, okay, well, what would I like to bring into my life? So even just being nice to yourself in January is enough. To say, and I'll do all the heavy stuff or the big stuff or the change my entire life. Wait till the end of February or March or even in April to do that. It's a much healthier time to do that. So that's why the diary is interesting, because as you said, there's themes for every month, but I've looked at the astrology that's coming up next year too. And so I have used the themes to balance out the difficult energies of each month so that you're already focusing on supporting yourself before anything even happens. And one of the things, I mean, you said it in your Hocus Focus there last weekend. I suppose what would it be? The December Hocus Focus. When you're looking at psychic weather, you are in control of what you think most of the time. And so to detach from what everyone is telling you and to come back into you and decide, well, what do I want for this month? And so if you have something to ground and anchor you into the energies of what you want, you can use the diary for that because you're in control of that. And you promise yourself that you're writing for you. You're not going to hand it up to a teacher at the end of the month. I think a lot of people think that, it's like an essay and who's going to see this and what is it for? You can burn it if you want to. I even have a page at the very back page here. So can I show you? This is a fire ceremony, which is encouraging you to rip out a page and burn it. I'm telling people, buy 5 or 6 different colors and scribble all over the diary and do what you want. Wreck the journal, wreck it. Because they're, how do I start and where do I go? And it's like, this is yours and you do you, and give yourself the freedom to do you and get to know you. I think it's so important. And if at the end of the year you focused on that, you've done a lot in a year, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. I also like how it starts when you go through the introduction, the first aid list at the beginning. So you start to do some inner work before you even start writing in it. You have to think about things that make you happy and what lifts up your emotions, and um, who can you contact when you're feeling sad, that kind of thing. And you make a list, a directory at the beginning of the thing, so you can turn back to that when you're feeling any of those emotions, and then go and do that thing or play that song that you listed that makes you feel happy or makes you feel better. So it's really, because when you're in the middle of an episode and you feel sad or you feel anxious, you don't automatically think, well, what song lifts
No.
me up? What can I do? You're in the fight or flight survival mode. So to have it all down at the beginning of this journal, this diary, and when you're feeling and you're getting swept away with the emotions, you can just pick this up, turn to the prescription list, I think is a good word for it, and just pick a prescription and
Yeah, you can do
that
that
thing.
too if you use a music service, is create a playlist. And I think, well, for me, I have an energy clearing playlist and I've made it public so people can come and find me on Spotify and just follow the list. And I think by the time you get to the third or fourth song, whatever's heavy is beginning to shift and move, and give you a bit of breathing space. But we get curled up like, and we just don't want to do anything at times. So just acknowledging how you feel is enough. Or you can send a text to someone and say, I feel like shite today, and that can really help. So, yeah.
I was listening to some of your meditations on SoundCloud. Now, I know that you found in other places as well, but I found them on the SoundCloud, and you have a very healing, relaxing voice. And I was listening to a guided meditation that you were doing, where we were sat in a field, and we had all our piles of shite around us, you said. Like, and I visualized them as they were cow pats. And we're in this, and we were just cleaning one up at a time until this field became clean and cleansed and full of nice flowers. And we could dress this field any way we wanted to, with daisies or sunflowers and things, but we had to get rid of the cow pats first. And I thought that was really, really creative, and it really worked because each cowpat that I visualized, either just um, disappearing naturally or me actually getting on my hands and knees and scraping it up and getting rid of it, was something in my life that I wasn't happy with, or an aspect
Mm.
of me that I wanted to work on. And then I replaced it with sunflowers or some daisies or a nice cow or an animal. And it really, really worked. And it was the best, I think it was 20 minutes, best 20 minutes I spent before bed. And I
That's
slept so well.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, people have accused me of spiritual bypassing. Okay, there was one particularly angry person who wrote a bad review of Weapons of Mass Protection, which is the book I wrote with Mark Atwood. And she said I was spiritual bypassing. And I would think of all the people, I definitely don't do that. Because I'm not saying take all your shite and make it into flowers. What I'm saying is a lot of the shite that you're carrying around, the heaviness, you're used to it and you don't have to carry it. It doesn't change the situation, but it can change how you feel about a situation, and it can change your attitude towards that situation. I'll give you an example. If you think someone's always angry at you, then what you're doing is projecting that thought onto the relationship. So if everything's energy and everything's frequency and we're multidimensional beings, every time you're visualizing that person that you think is angry at you, you're also eliciting a frequency that says they are angry at me. And somewhere, somehow, in the quantum field of consciousness, they're sensing that from you. It's like you're pinging them and telling them they're angry at you. And they're receiving it and feeling the anger and thinking that you're angry at them. And then they become angry at you. And this is how you create that. So by transforming that and saying, okay, maybe they're not angry at me, maybe they're just angry. Maybe the anger has nothing to do with me, and maybe I should just shift how I see them because I was friends with them or I am family with them. And the anger is an emotion and it's overpowering the truth of what's going on in the connection between us. And so that's similar to taking a cow pat in your mind's eye and transforming it into a flower. If you just say, okay, I'm going to take the person at face value for who they are, I'm going to detach from whatever drama or details are going on, and I'm going to clear a path between the both of us so that there's space for something else to come in, not just anger. And I'm not going to hold them in my psychic field as being angry. It's incredible what happens then. It's really because then you get used to the idea maybe they're not angry, but then you release that anger, you get a little lighter, you get happier, you don't feel the dread when they contact you or if they pop up in your mind's eye. And then when you get together with them, they're not angry because they're not picking that anger frequency up from you. And so the diary is here to teach you when you're doing it to yourself. Can you imagine? I mean, it's easy to explain this when you're doing it with someone else. But let's just say your belly, right? And every time you look at your belly, you're like, I hate my belly. It's too big. It's too this. It's too that. And then you're putting that frequency into your belly. And then your belly is reflecting that frequency back to you. You're creating animosity within your body, and your body has to absorb that energy. Whereas you look at your belly and you say, Hi, belly, you're doing the best you can with how I'm treating you. I'm doing the best I can. So let's just sit with forgiveness, dissolve it all away. And then there's a more of a level of peace in your psychic field that wouldn't have been there before. And then you stop this cycle of animosity and hatred and anger towards yourself. It gives you actually more energy to stop it with everyone else too. And then the peace comes in. So yeah.
It also gives you the power to think about what can I do, like with the belly example. So you're doing the best that you can with what I'm giving you and what I'm doing for you. What can I do for you that will help you?
Yeah.
What can I do for your belly that will help you to become um more of what I envisage? So you start thinking about self-help, diet. Are you eating the wrong foods? Are you do you have what's the word? Hold on, I've forgotten my train of thought. Hold on. What do you have an intolerance? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I don't think imagining doing a meditation and sitting in a field full of cowpats and turning them into flowers, I don't think that's spiritual bypassing per se, unless you don't understand what the exercise is asking of you, because that exercise was never claiming that it was going to change your life and everything was going to become all fluffy unicorns and rainbows. It was asking you to face something that you don't like and just
Yeah.
for 20 minutes just look at it in a different way and transform it. It was never saying it's gonna go away and all become fantastic. It's giving you some inner work to think on and how to change your
Absolutely.
perspective. And I think
I
a
mean,
lot of
that's the
people.
hangman card, isn't it?
Yes.
Flips you over and keeps you there as you look at something, and it transforms it because you're not afraid to face it. And that's your biggest defense being in the world, is knowing yourself, facing all of the aspects of you, because there's parts of you are really happy with things and parts of you are really unhappy with things. You need to become that multidimensional being. I see like a pack of cards, and you put out all the different ages of you, the different aspects of you that may be frozen in time, and then you talk to each one of them and see what they need from you. You
Yeah.
know.
And it could be something as simple, the cow pat that you envisage is I can't stop checking my phone. That I
Mm,
don't like that part of my life, you could think. And you could see that as a pile of shite that you need to deal with. But doing a 20-minute meditation isn't spiritual bypassing, it's actually making you look at what it is that's affecting your day and making you procrastinate and not do any other work. And you look at that, and as you're looking at it, you start thinking, well, what can I do to turn this into a nice sunflower? Maybe I could turn the phone off an hour before bed. Maybe I could have a day where I don't plug into being online and I just focus on doing things in real life. Go and see a friend in reality instead of talking online. Go and phone them up and see how they are. And then slowly over time, I think that transforms that particular pile of shite into something a lot sweeter smelling.
it's really interesting you say that, because I think there's a lot of people, and probably a lot of people watching this, who have the same thing. Why do I keep picking up my phone? I hate the amount of time that I'm trapped on social media. But they know this, but they can't actually do it. And I've discovered, I'd say about 2 or 3 years ago, because I would do a monthly group clearing energy healing session. And I found when I would cast my awareness over the group that would come, that they were very unsettled and not able to be in stillness. So, what came to me as I was working was the concept of a psychic virus. So, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, because it was like a gift to me through a knowing or something, where you're looking on the internet and there's a virus in there gets into your brain. And the more time you spend, the more viruses connect into your mind. And these viruses all pull you back into the internet. So you could be sitting there saying, oh, I want to not spend as much time on my phone, but you're still picking it up. You're still picking it up. And so you say, okay, so what I did, and people watching this can try this, was I said, okay, imagine in your hand you have a golden comb. And it's like a lice comb. Now I've got children and they had lice at school. And so we had to do the lice combing. But you could start with a really wide tooth comb and then just comb your brain and just sit there and comb your brain. Say, I'm combing out the psychic viruses. And you could actually feel things leaving your mind. And then you look at the comb and you can breathe fire on it and clean it up. It's all your imagination. But then visualize that the teeth are getting smaller and then do it again. And then smaller and do it again. And as it became a more sophisticated exercise, people were saying, yeah, well, I have a titanium comb, I have a quartz comb, I have a smoky quartz comb, I have an obsessive. Great. It's what you need. And I've found that by doing this regularly, the desire to pick the phone up is diminished. So there are psychic, energetic, I don't know what you call them, entities, viruses, things that hook us in that go beyond our wanting and desire to not look, but it's an urge or an addiction, and the more you clear it out of your system, the more you are in control of yourself. Does that make
It
sense?
does, because those things could be construed as digital demons coming out of a black mirror,
Yes.
because we are looking at a black mirror for most of the day and giving our focus to it. And then at the same time, people are complaining that they've got no focus, they've got no concentration, and they don't understand why. And people are doing research papers saying that these devices are stealing our ability to focus on what's important in life. But I say they're not really stealing it, because you're giving your focus away to it intentionally. You're giving
Mhm.
it away. So how can you steal something that you're giving away? And I think that's how
Well, I mean, it is
entities and things
designed to
work.
trap us. It's like saying, I suppose, that money is evil and alcohol makes everyone an alcoholic. I mean, some people have more resistance to it than other people. So it's a question again of saying, okay, as an energy healer, as someone who's worked with energy for years, I clear with everything. I could meet a good friend that I love dearly and I will still clear my energy. It's not just because I'm around a group of people that I don't like or around difficult. I would clear my energy all the time anyway. And it's about spiritual hygiene. And these things, they suck into you. It's parasitic in a way. And if you leave a piece of you in an argument you're having on a Facebook page in Facebook, it keeps calling you back, you know. And so what you do is you take that piece of you out. And then there's no desire to go look at what we all are looking for ultimately is ourselves, the pieces of ourselves that we don't have. And we look for those in other people, and we look for those in conversations. We look for those in material goods, and we look for those when we're having alcohol. And we think it's the connection with the other person that's going to give us that. And I would say 99 times out of 100, people don't give us what we think we need.
Yeah.
So it comes back to the relationship that we have with ourselves. And if you're sitting there and you're hating on your tummy, and then you're expecting the loved one to be angry at you, it really reminds me of a client I had one time who came to me and she was distraught. And she said, I just want my parents to accept me exactly as I am, which you would think is a very fair comment and something that's reasonable to ask. But what came up as we started to open it out was she didn't accept her parents as they were. So I said, okay, well, don't you think you should accept your parents for who they are? And then that will be reciprocated by them to you. And then we opened it up further, and I discovered that she did not accept herself as she was. She said, well, how would you expect anyone else to accept you as you are if you can't do it? So within that is the conundrum and the pieces in your own heart with yourself, and so if you can accept yourself and your eccentricities, and that there are things about yourself you don't like, but there might be a lot of things about yourself that you do like. and just have that acceptance, then there's a level of peace within you that gives you a superb foundation point for everything else in the life that happens. So I want to empower people to reach that point. That's really what I'm all about.
I think we project a lot of our own inner demons, don't we, on other people? So, like that lady who said her parents couldn't accept her, really, she couldn't accept herself. So, she projected that out onto her parents, I suppose, because they were the people that she loved the most, because it tends to be the people that we love the most or who are closest to us that cop for our
Yeah,
projections. So,
absolutely right. And so that's why the most intimate relationships are the most volatile.
yeah.
It's like, but you can't read my mind, and I want you to know all, to tell me all the things that I need to, but if you stop being mean to yourself, that releases a whole frequency bandwidth, let's say, that you don't really need in your life. Hence all the distractions and all of the sensational news stories to keep you caught with those psychic viruses again. So you really need to know what's going on across the other side of the world when you're not looking at what's going on inside your own heart. So yeah.
Yeah, it's like you could also liken that to people want an outer body experience. But why focus on having an outer body experience when we're not even comfortable with what's going on within our own within our own experiences. We're always looking external without doing the
Yes,
work within the shadow work, because we see things that we don't like, and then we don't like that, we project it onto somebody else. It's their fault because they think that about us. And
that's
so it goes
interesting that
on.
you call it that too, because when I wrote Heal Your Inner Wounds, I was going to do shadow and light, and I said no, because that's pussyfooting it around. Darkness and light. The shadow parts of us are the parts that we're not really familiar with, or the parts that we're disowning, but we are light and dark. I mean, I don't know about you, but if someone came up to me and said, I'm a white witch, I would run a mile, because I don't think there is such a thing. The yin and yang, the darkness and the light, we are all of that. And it's about claiming the darker parts of ourselves and being okay with those. That's what makes us, the depth and the interest. It makes people much more interesting when we have those parts. And so I think rather than saying, oh, it's shadow work and projecting thing, to say, no, I'm claiming me, and I'm not taking responsibility for you. And then suddenly we have a bunch of people who are adults, and we can't be controlled then if we're responsible adults. And that makes, and I think that makes life so much more interesting. And I'm really excited as I see more adults showing up in my life. It's great.
I think the last 4 years have highlighted that there's a lot of lost souls out there
Mm.
masquerading as having their the shit together, but they haven't, and they really showed their true colours during the last 4 years. And some of us have managed to get through that in one piece, and others have just fallen off and decided that they're going to go along with the narrative that's been fed to them through the TV and the mainstream, rather than do the inner work and think, this doesn't sound right. I need to use some discernment, but yeah, I can't. So I'm just going to follow the herd. There's been a big divide, and I don't know if that's a
Yeah.
good thing or a bad thing, because we talk about if we're divided, we're easier to conquer, but also if we're divided, like we've been divided, we've been split down the middle over the last 4 years. It's also easier to find your tribe as well, to find your people, and to let go of the dross, for want of a better word.
Well, I mean, if we're having conversations like this, I haven't met you until this year. And I think a lot of us in over the 4 years at the beginning were very much on our own. But now we've seen each other, and we're finding each other, and it makes us stronger to do that. And some people don't have that fundamental trust in themselves to make their own decisions, that they hand it over to authority. And again, it goes back to the childlike state where mama and dada will do the decisions for you. And then you hand it to the doctor, or you hand it to the government, or you hand it to someone else in authority. Where when we become our own authorities, I can sit with you and ask your opinion on something, and then I can say, okay, from what you've said, I know it's the opposite for me, but that's helpful. And I'm not projecting onto you. I'm listening, and I'm listening to them, and I'm listening to them. And then I'm deciding for myself, as opposed to handing over to somebody outside of us. And we have that capacity. And I think it's a muscle that needs to be exercised more. But by us doing it and holding strong in it and then leading by example, I think that's the way to go. And there's a lot of people impatient who want it all done quick. But if you see it as a long game, then you come back to those mindful moments. Then I think that's how we all get through it.
It's a lifetime of learning, isn't it? Okay, I want to talk to you about intuition. So, how can somebody, or how would you advise somebody that they can learn to trust their own intuition, especially if they're feeling disconnected from it?
That's brilliant that you asked that, because I was thinking it's very funny and interesting that I keep going back to the stomach in this conversation. And I think when you look at processed foods and the food pyramid and all of the trash they encourage us to eat, I think that clogs up the stomach. And intuition comes really from around that part of our body. So, to become more intuitive, what you need to do, first of all, it's like a yoga when you bring yourself more in. So, again, it's the opposite of what we were saying, where everything is outside of us. You have to come in more, and then you have to recognize your voices in your mind and separate them out. The one that's telling you what you should have done, that might not even be your voice, that could be your dad's voice. Who was the perfectionist with the whip to say, you never finish anything, you never get it. It's okay, and dissolve it away and come into the heart and come down to your tummy. So if you don't have a good relationship with your tummy, then that's a really good place to start. And then to try and calm the mind and silent the mind and just sit with yourself and everything you're feeling. It gets very noisy, very chatty. Your bacteria in your gut can be talking to you and telling you to eat something that's bad for you. The thing your mother said 6 months ago is sitting right here, and you could be picking up on that. So, how do you know when you get this intuitive shift that it is actually you and coming from your intuition? Is the ability to sit in stillness. Use that psychic comb that I talked about. And I'm going to comb out everybody else's thought forms. If you think of a thought form as a frequency or an energy, it's not necessarily yours. And you can just spend a while combing it out, not needing any great epiphany. I'm cleaning up my house. The house that I live in is my body, my psyche, my psychic field. Cleaning up my field. I think that's why the imagery in that meditation was of an actual field. Somebody comes in and vomits their emotions all over you, it's in your field. You need to clean it or you're hearing them. Do you know what I mean? So if you decide, okay, for a whole week, I'm not going to pressurize myself. That's why I love the diary, because it gives you these opportunities. I'm not going to pressurize myself, and I'm just going to focus on cleaning up my psychic energy field. That's all I'm going to do. Towards the end of that week, or even faster, because things are moving so much faster now, you will get really more in touch with your own voice, your inner voice, your higher self's voice, your body's voice, or your body will start to come in and tell you what it needs more. And it feels different. It's not from in here, it's kind of more of a feeling from within, but everybody feels this in a different way. So again, you could use something like the diary, or I suggest people go around with a notebook and say, okay, my sense of intuition is telling me this, and you write it down. And you focus on the words that are coming up. Are you starting to project your idea of what you think it should be versus what you received? You have to be able to separate that out too. Do you see? And then your idea of what you think it should be, is it yours, or did you watch it on TV, or were you signed up for some webinar, or did you pick it up on an advert? So you have to deprogram yourself. You don't just, it's not an instant thing. However, some people find that it's always been there all the time, and that it's not a big firework moment where, oh my God, I can finally hear my intuition. It's more like my intuition was whispering in the background the whole time, and I just didn't give it any attention.
It is very
So
subtle.
it is. And as you listen to the whispers, it starts to become a conversation. And as you listen to the conversation, it becomes stronger in you. And you decide then, what am I going to pay attention to? What everyone's telling me I need to do, what everyone's telling me I should be feeling, or how I actually feel, or what my intuition is telling me. And sometimes you can play tricks on yourself. It's like one time I had this really strong urge to go into a specific shop Didn't know why. And it was almost like I was testing myself. So I was okay. So I drove up to the shop, and there was a parking space right in front of that shop, which is very difficult to find. So I took that as a sign, and I went into the shop, and it says, no, 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 go to the back wall, go to this corner of the back wall. And I'm like, what the heck is this? So I go to and then that urgency, that need just, and then it was like, okay, you did good, you can go now. So was that a demon playing with me? Was it an angel? I don't know. But for me, there's so much more going on than we realize. And I thought about this for a while afterwards. I had just been out on the land. I had just been around a megalithic site where I was receiving light codes and packets of energy. And it's very possible that I went into that store and left something behind for someone else that I don't even know what the impact is for them. So you have to surrender your need to know all the answers and play with the intuition and trust it. And you do come into balance with it, but it's a process, it's a dance over time.
I'll give you an example of something that happened to me a couple of years ago. My husband wanted to walk the dogs, and it was 11 o'clock at night. And we don't normally walk them that late at night. And I said, something doesn't feel right. No, don't do it. And oh, it'll be fine. It's a nice summer's night. It's going to be fine. Come with me. Come with me. And I said, no, honestly, don't go. And we had this conversation for about 10 minutes where he was saying, oh, you're imagining things. So I managed to distract him for 10 minutes. And he eventually ignored me and he went out to walk the dogs. And lo and behold, 10 minutes previous, somebody was stabbed where
Wow.
he would have been walking. It was
Mm,
a domestic incident at somebody's house. It was a house that he would have had to walk by. And whether he would have been involved in that or whether it would have been him, I don't know. But me feeling that something wasn't right and telling him and having this 10-minute where he's like, yeah, okay, I think you're just imagining it. And I'm saying, no, no, please don't go. And it managed to put him behind 10 minutes. So he missed it.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I often think that too, if a white car comes in front of me when I'm driving and then drives really slowly. So I'm like, okay. And I slow down as well because it's like, we are being protected. Those of us that are working this way, I think, it's everything is conspiring to help us learn who we truly are. Even the tests, even the mistakes that we made is learning, and so if we go, okay, I surrender, I don't know anything, show me, what do I need to do, how can I, and what's really interesting for me is some of the work that I do has so many impacts out in the world, and I don't go looking to find the answers, but sometimes I receive emails from people who tell me, oh, you said a thing and this happened and then this happened and you saved my life, and I'm like, whoa, because it can be overwhelming. So you could have, just by listening to your intuition, you could have saved your husband's life.
It's a very subtle feeling. It's a niggling feeling, but you think, no, I'm going to listen to that because I don't like the way that feels. And yeah, the repercussions of it could be immense. I mean, a case in
Totally.
point, I mentioned on Facebook the other day that I was woken up to the sound of my name being sang by something, a
Mm,
female voice, and then I saw my name in yellow, sorry, in orange, which is I thought was that to do with the sacral area,
yeah.
which is the stomach area as well, I suppose, and still was trying to figure it out, and I've had a bit of a water infection that I've been ignoring because it's not too much, and I thought, well, I'm going to make an appointment at the doctors. I haven't been to the doctors for about 18 months. I don't like going unless it's necessary. Terrible. And I thought I'll make an appointment so I can get a cup and go and send a sample and we'll get some antibiotics and think no more about it. And I've been putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And this morning, not too long before we came on to film, there was a missed call on my phone. And I thought, oh, it's a landline, it's local, I wonder who that is. And then a text message came in to say that my doctor's surgery got in touch with me to phone me about the appointment that I wanted to make that I'd made online. Could they phone me because there's been an issue with the timing? And I thought, I haven't made an appointment online. I haven't even been near the doctor's appointment. That's so strange. So I thought I'll deal with that after our chat. Anyway, about 2 minutes before you came into the chat, the doctors phoned me and said it's the doctors. It's about some blood test results that you've had. And I said, what blood test results? I haven't been to see you for 18 months. Oh, well, it says here that you have. No, I haven't. Wait a minute. I think we've got somebody with the same date of birth and the same surname, same first name. I'm very sorry. And I said, no, it's fine. I said, I just don't want you to be giving me sensitive information that's nothing to do with me, that's private. And then thinking about it, that's spirit or the universe or whatever you want to say telling me to go and get on that portal and make an appointment, get that cup, send in the sample and get the antibiotics and be on your way. Otherwise, it's going to turn into something a little bit more serious, because if you don't shift these small water infections, they can get into the kidneys and things like that. And that has happened before in life when I've
Mm.
ignored it. So I think that was a sign to tell me get the appointment made. But it knocked me off my feet when I got the phone call from the doctors. I was only thinking about it the other day and I thought, I haven't been on the portal. I haven't been tinkering or messing. So there's no way that I've pressed a button or done something by mistake.
But I think as we pull more inwards, right, we realize that we influence so much more of the outside. It's flipping it. So the world is flipped to say, give your power away. But when you take your power in, just you thinking about it, you're calling it into you. It was really interesting because when I set up my healing practice, I was knocking on doors trying to get clients, and I realized, no, I'm not a solicitor and I'm not soliciting. People will come to me, and you shift that way of being like, I'm the flower and the bee comes to the flower. So you in your power have called in the doctor to remind you maybe that it's okay to talk to them, that they're people and they're fine, that you're in control. You're not going to lose your power by connecting in. You're using them for something that you need to use them for. And that's what they're there for, really. So I think over the coming years, as people become more intuitive, as people trust themselves more, as people clean up their relationship with themselves, we're going to have all this extra energy that we've been spending on hurting and disempowering ourselves, that we can start to use to create the things that we want. Just like you said in the psychic weather for Hocus Focus, if you can spend some time every day with your imagination, focusing on and visualizing what you'd like in your life, if you're actually doing that, it's incredible. But the belief that you can have it, again, thinking it's already done can be difficult for some people to do. But if you focus on all the reasons why I can't have it, all the reasons that I think I can't have it, and start to clear those out of your system until you can go, okay, what would I be like if I had an extra zero in my bank account and everything shifted up by 10? Would I be feeling uneasy? Can I add another zero? If I realize that instead of £100 in my bank account, I have £100,000 just sitting there, can I hold space for me to be okay with that? Or would I be very anxious just thinking of all that money in the bank? So as you're calling money, but you're anxious, you're pushing it away while pulling it in at the same time. But you could release all of that and go, no, I can handle 100,000 in the bank. And you go through, what part of me can't? Okay, well, let's just say, well, let's just try it for fun. And I think if more and more of us start to do that, and realizing that money's an energy and we can choose what to spend it on, and that fun and joy is our actual birthright. We don't have to go pursuing it. We need to be at peace with ourselves. I think that the world would be an incredible place. We can go into the doctor, get what we need, and come back out again and not have them lasso us, pull us in, tell us that we're going to die unless we do all of these other treatments that they need us to do, to keep us trapped there for our lives, to keep us small and disempowered. It's really interesting times. I feel very grateful to be alive right now.
Yes, me too. Me too. And I think if you use the imagination and you think that these things have already happened in your life, it clears the path for the opportunities that come in for you to take the action to actually make that happen. So if you're thinking about £100,000 and you're thinking not about all the reasons you shouldn't have £100,000 and it's not making you anxious, you're thinking about, I've got £100,000, I'm going to do all this wonderful stuff with it, then
Mm.
opportunities seem to present themselves where it might be a better job, it might be a promotion, but they're all opportunities that come in your way where you have to take action. So you're not just sitting
Yes.
there clicking your heels together waiting, but the opportunities come that actually can make that dream or that imagination a reality.
Yeah, that's inspired action, which comes from clearing your intuition, which is really, it's really all connected. Everything that we're saying is, it's really knowing. It's a difference between hoping to believing to knowing. And you know that you can do this, and that's why in the diary, I've got affirmations here. And when you read an affirmation, you can open it on a random page. You could say, Today I let my inner child out to play, and I see the world through their eyes." To just spend time with the frequency of that. When you have joy and fun, you're releasing desperation and need. You can't be joyful and in fun and play and desperate and needy at the same time. The desperate and needy, by releasing that, you allow things to come in. I give myself the time to do all the things I need to do. Do I? No, well, I will. I can and I should. And you transform that. And I don't have an affirmation on every day because I think some of them you need time to sit with them. And I don't say the affirmation for today is the one that you have to do today. You can pick another one, but to do it in your mind and then in your heart and then in your gut, so that you bring that frequency all the way through, so that you can use your imagination then to say, okay, I could have 100,000 in the bank. How do I feel with 100,000 in the bank? And say, and I open all of the possibilities for that to come in. And anyone who's watching this who can feel through the words that I've just said, I'd love to know if you get a windfall. You were talking about my little meditations I have on SoundCloud. I have one to clear financial fear. And people have written to me and said they've received checks and more money when they've cleared it, but then the fear came back. So you need to clear it and hold it. You need to hold that sensibility of not being afraid, of tapping into the potential that you are empowered. It's that's why it's so exciting.
People have been conditioned to believe that money is evil, haven't they? It's the root
Yeah.
of all evil, and it isn't. It's an energy or it's a tool, and a hammer is just a hammer when it's on the table. But if it gets into the wrong hands, then it can be a deadly weapon. So a hammer isn't evil because it can be used for a deadly weapon. It can also be used to build a house or to put a shelf up. And it's the same with money. It's not evil, it's neutral. It's what you do with it. It's how
And it's the
how
same
it
with power
changes
as
you.
well.
Yeah. And
It's the
if
same with power as well. It's like I say about the car, I won't go anywhere unless there's petrol in it.
yes, exactly. And if you're the type of person that money is going to corrupt, then that corruption, that potential for the corruption is always in there. There's something in there that needs working on.
Yeah, and so you claim it as a dark piece of you and sit down with it and have that conversation. What is it that you need? What is it that you think you need? And what do you actually need? And really, it could be just your awareness that it exists. Yeah, I have a thing about handbags. I love handbags. And my stepmother bought me a beautiful handbag, and I showed up with a different handbag. And she's like, "Oh, you got a different one?" And I said, "Yeah, this is just a thing that I do, and I'm claiming it. I like handbags. I buy handbags. So what? I'm not berating myself for it. We all have our eccentricities. We all have things we like. We all have things that we do. And if we face them and say, okay, this is just who I am. I like to buy crystals. I like pretty things. I like good coffee. I know who I am. Then the urgency or the urge or the pressure that turns it into something taboo and dark, and like you have to sneak in and hide the handbag somewhere so that nobody knows you just went out and bought another handbag. But then you can't use it. There's no joy in that. You can't put the crystal out on your table. There's no joy in that. Just say, I'm open and I'm joyful. And what's really interesting about these times is it's our integrity and our authenticity is showing more. It's showing more. And so if someone is hiding something, you can feel it. If someone is lying to you, you can know it. And if somebody does the opposite of what they say they do, there's a sense around that. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. So
Yeah, to be able to see that in somebody because it can make you be aware then to be careful of
Yes,
that person. And also
absolutely.
with things like handbags and shoes, I mean, I'm guilty. I like shiny things. I do. And if you buy one, you buy something and you have to hide it. I mean, these little things. They're all over the computer desk. If I had to buy one of these and hide it, that would change the vibration of it for me. I wouldn't be able to enjoy it. And I
Yes.
like these things, you know. Some people like cigarettes. Some people like, um, I don't know,
Glass of wine.
glass of wine. I mean, I like one of those as well, but I like
Yeah,
to collect shiny things and look at them and feel them. And yeah, that's just part of who I am. And I would never want to
yeah.
hide that.
I think the more authentic we can be, the more parts of ourselves we accept, and just this is just who I am, that the more ease there is. It really is. And then you're able to be in stillness with yourself. You're able to be more mindful, and that's where the magic is. Really, that's where the magic is.
I want to talk to you about affirmations. You mentioned them earlier, and they do feature a lot in the diary. But they must be used with intention, yeah? Otherwise, they're just empty words. So tell us more about
Absolutely.
how we can put a strong intent behind using the affirmations.
Um, okay, this might not be the exact one, but in my diary, I have all these codes, the QR codes, and one of them links to an affirmations workshop on YouTube. So I pick one of the affirmations, and in the YouTube, we do it together because that's a workshop. So when I was starting off with my healing practice, when I successfully managed to blend the energy work with the psychotherapy and the shamanism and the transformation, one of the things I realized was that people made these tremendous, deep, profound transformational shifts with the healing, but their brain can easily talk them out of it. That never happened. You didn't do the work. So what was really interesting was shamanically, I would give them a rock and you can breathe into the rock. This is how I feel now. And then you have the rock in your hand. But now I'm doing mostly Zoom sessions. So I can't give someone a rock through the Zoom. And I was also giving affirmations as the antidote to whatever the brain is going to do next. So I would hand prescribe people affirmations based on where they were and what they needed, but they would distill down to specific ones that I would continue to give the same ones. And so the idea of the affirmation is it's encapsulating an energy or a frequency that you need. It's a bit like homeopathy or taking a supplement. So I even said this to a friend of mine the other day. One of the most powerful affirmations that I created was for me, which was I no longer need to cause myself emotional pain. And I found that hugely powerful for me because every time I caught my thoughts, going at the body again, giving out because you didn't do something or you're procrastinating or you bought another handbag or whatever, I said, hang on a minute. I no longer need to cause myself emotional pain. But if I didn't connect into the frequency and the words of that first, it's like you print it in, then you can't use it to shut something down. So you have to sit with the affirmation and go, okay, what does this feel like for my mind? I no longer need to cause myself. Is this true? Well, actually, yes, it's true. Find me one reason why the brain says it's not true. No, good. Okay, so the brain has got it down to the heart then. Heart, do I need to cause myself? No, I no longer need to cause myself emotional pain. And the heart's really happy with that. So you bring it down to the stomach. And then the stomach is where we hold our guilt. So there might be a few reasons why you're still beating yourself up over something. So there's a self-forgiveness piece might need to happen before you can truly print that affirmations frequency into your stomach. So you do the work, so you do the work and you go, okay, I no longer need, and it's like you are conditioning yourself to remember this. So as you're unconditioning yourself from one thing, you're conditioning yourself to something more healthy because I think that's how we're patterned. That's how we're designed. We're designed to take conditioning. So we work with it in a positive way to remind ourselves that. And so you can just say the affirmation over and over again, or you elicit the energy of it just because you've connected to it and you bring it through you. So with the diary and the months and the themes that go throughout the year, they're, complementary to the energies of the astrology. So that, let's say there's going to be a particularly rocky month, everything's about grounding that month. So I bring myself back in. I am here. I am safe. Oh, I don't feel safe. Why? Is it my energy? Is it your energy? Is it the collective energy? I'm out with my psychic virus combing it out of my body. I can do some deeper energy clearing work. I said, no, I feel safe now. I feel good. And how's my tummy feels okay. And you're looking after you. And it's so empowering. So affirmations, you don't just say them up here. You embody them. You reattune yourself to them. And they become really powerful medicine.
So you bring them in at many different levels then, yeah, not just the mental level, but also the physical and the spiritual, so a real mind, body, spirit.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's nice to pick one that feels like you're comfortable with it, but then I would go with one that's a little bit uncomfortable because that shows you what your work is. I always joke to the Americans, it's like if you look in the mirror and say, I love myself, Irish people can't do that. I'm pretty sure, English people can't do that. So, I would say to the Americans, yeah, go love yourself means something totally different in Ireland. So, but if you can look in the mirror and say, I like to be me, I like being me, it's okay being me. You kind of get there where I can tolerate being me. Instead of saying I hate being me, you find where you actually are on the scale of that. And then you try and work up a little bit, just a little bit to upgrade yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a process though. It's a process and you can go backwards to go forwards. And
Y-
if you look at the bigger picture, ultimately, if you're deliberately putting yourself in a situation where you can prove to yourself that you're not good enough, you're the one that did that to yourself just because you're self-flagellating or you're angry. And the better thing you can do is to go down into the depths of yourself and say, where am I still angry at me? And let's just knock that on the head right now.
So
You
this
know,
diary with all its overarching topics and things, when it's been filled in and we're at the end of the year next December, and we're reflecting back on the year and thinking about how things have gone, because there's reflections on the end of each month um,
yeah.
to think back to as well. But how would you say that this book can be used as a tool going forward once it's been completed and you've done the work in there to help you
Well,
with the 2026 version of going forward?
it's really an individual thing. I mean, it depends on how you feel about where you've come. But it's interesting as time goes on, I feel less and less of a draw for sentimentality and mementos and going back through time and looking at how I was because I would rather be fully here now with how I am. So if you wanted to burn the diary and release all of the emotion, repressed emotion and anxiety, angst and pain that you suffered over the year, you could burn it. That's up to you. Or you could put it away somewhere and look at it in 10 years' time. And well, look how far I've come. Or you could go through it again as a gratitude exercise to say, I'm really grateful for all the lessons that I've learned. You could even pull out one line from each day that you wrote and create a poem. You could end up with a poem for every month because as you're writing, you're not aware of what you're writing. And then when you pull back and read it in a different energy, that line is actually quite beautiful. So if you took one line from every day for every month, you could end up with 12 poems. That could be how you remember your year last year. So there's lots of different things that you could do.
It's very creative and it's beautiful colours inside and this. I mean, it's gorgeous. It really is a shiny book. It's lovely. We say we like shiny things. It's lovely.
Well, I hope it's
Very
not too
feminine.
shiny for people to not want to write in it because it's designed for you to make it your own.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to make it their own.
I
So.
did say to you before we came on, I've got my special gel pen ready for it. Um, but yeah, I'm just going to fill it in, I think, warts and all. I'm going to give it my all. And I think the diary really, really speaks to the subconscious or the inner self. And I think it's made for self improvement and self awareness. And if you are feeling a bit all at sea or ungrounded, then you can come back to center by just perhaps just reflecting on the previous month, week, or quarter, depending on where you are in the year when you're feeling these emotions, and just have a think about how you've dealt with things that have come up during the month, or how the world is going, or how what's changed in the world over the last month, because it might not just be at a personal level that you use this diary. You might use this diary to help you navigate through the
Well,
times
if
that
you're using it as
we're
part
in.
of you and it pulls you back into yourself and away from everything else, and that's wonderful. And it's very validating what you're saying, Sarah, because when I lost the contract with the publishers, I was thinking of just publishing a diary where you could start at any day and just have as a healing and just do one and that's it, and perpetual, like a perpetual one, and I wouldn't refresh it, and you could just buy another one when you're finished. And I thought, but then you're losing the flow of the energies with what's coming up astrologically. You're losing the flow with the moon time, and I do believe that the moon does affect our moods as well and all of that. And I thought, no, I'll just keep going with it and see where we end up. So thank you. I'm really glad you like it that much.
I do. I love it. And one of the themes that jumped out for me personally is the theme of self belief, which I think also runs throughout that book, along with being present. And I'm a kind of person who has a lot of self doubt and maybe even feels a little bit of imposter syndrome. So I'm hoping that this diary can help me to alleviate some of that come throughout the coming year.
Well, I think going back to how we're all conditioned, and the whole idea of competition. And this was something actually was really interesting that I learned when I became a Reiki practitioner, was that if somebody was coming to me and then they went to someone else, I didn't get upset or jealous because I thought, well, I gave them what they needed and now they need something else from somebody else. And so when it comes to imposter syndrome, it's the same thing. When you claim your voice is yours. And you're no, and nobody else thinks like you, is you, talks like you, acts like you. And when you start to own that, then you're not an imposter because you're owning who you are. And that's what you're offering to the world. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. So the more peaceful you are with yourself and the better the relationship is, you can say, okay, you can take me or leave me. If you don't want to come to me, you can go to the practitioner down the road. And that's fine with me because I'm not taking it personally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Release your attachments.
Well, I think that is a great place to end. And I've really enjoyed this chat. And I'm going to continue on with your meditations and also with some of your YouTube Ask Abby Anything series that you've been doing. I've been watching that. I really enjoy
Oh,
that. So please tell people where they can buy your diary, buy your books, and find your website and just listen to all those beautiful guided meditations that you offer and all the other work that you put out there.
oh, thank you. Yeah, everything is really on abby-wynne.com. If you're in Ireland, I have a few high quality copies with a lovely bookmark kind of page. And if you're the rest of the world, um, a Lulu diary is just as beautiful. It just doesn't have the bookmark page, but it's also very well produced. I think as a self-published person, there's a lot of impediments in the way deliberately. And each year I believe I'm improving the process. So I'm really, really excited to have the high quality ones, but unfortunately shipping them out is very difficult from Ireland. So hopefully next year I'll have a solution for that for the rest of the world. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, I do group healing sessions every month. I've got 13 other books I've done, and I've written a trilogy in fiction, which basically explores the process that I went through, trying to blend shamanism, psychotherapy, and Reiki to create that process, which I'm now going to be teaching for practitioners next year, which is really exciting. But I wrote it as a fictional trilogy, so it's a little bit more than what I experienced, and also a little bit different, but fun. It's there behind me actually. It's called the Inner Compass Trilogy. So yeah, keep creating.
Well, Abby, thanks for coming on and giving up your time. And it's been a pleasure to talk with you. And I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into my diary and listening to more of those meditations. And I hope that we can have a talk again sometime in the future soon.
Anytime, anytime. I'll have you on my show as well. Be really good.
That'd be great. Yeah. And if you
Yeah.
guys enjoyed Abby's discussion, then please go and subscribe to her YouTube channel and check out her website. I'm going to put all the links in the description as well. So you've got no excuses. And if you haven't already, please give this episode a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button here at Wuthering Nights. It's just a click of a button to you guys, but it means the world to me and you won't miss any future content. And I will see you all soon for another episode of the Caffeine Chronicles.
Ginger fairies.